Shalom. Welcome back to Abantu Bible Academy, where we are preparing Yah's people for his return. Our course is called the Battle of the Age. We are doing Module 1, which we call the Commonwealth of Yeshara'el, remembering that this battle is between the Confederacy of Esau and the Commonwealth of Yeshara'el. And we have already covered two topics. The first one was the lineage of Abraham, or the choosing or selection of Abraham. And then we looked at Yatsecha and Jacob, and the 12 tribes that came from Jacob. We're talking about topic 3, which covers Ephraim. Ephraim is the son of Joseph, one of the two sons of Joseph, and he has a brother that we'll also talk about here. But you see that the focus of the narrative would be on Ephraim. We want to remind ourselves of why we do this course. In Genesis chapter 2, there is this verse that reads, "Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined with his wife, and they shall become one flesh." The whole Bible is about how Yah finds a wife for his son, Yeshua, and he gives him the earth to rule with this wife. That's fascinating. It is fascinating, and it's not a common teaching. And when we understand this, then we understand the language of the scriptures better. But secondly, there is this battle between Esau and Jacob. And the reason for this battle is because of the blessing that Jacob got from their father, Isaac, Yatsecha, where he said, "Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you." Esau thought that this blessing was supposed to come to him, but instead it went to Jacob. And we spoke about the circumstances of this blessing and what happened even before they were born. But still Esau was aggrieved, and he made war with his brother. And of course, there seemed to have been some reconciliation between Esau and Jacob in Genesis. But the descendants of Edom will instigate another war against their cousins, the descendants of Israel. So much so that it ended up being an all-out war, and Jacob killed Esau, and this hatred then just festered, and it continued even to this age. So that's really what the scriptures are all about, and we want people to understand this battle, but also understand who is who. Because when we come to this war that's happening now between the West and Iran, if you don't know who is who from a biblical perspective, you might end up picking the wrong side. You might end up saying things that are not in keeping with what the scriptures are saying. You might find yourself, being misaligned, and maybe deceived even to the point of you even losing your way in this journey. So it's important then for us to understand that this battle, this war, it's biblical. It's biblical, and we want to understand who is who. And I'm hoping that as we continue to learn about this battle and understand the different belligerence, we will be able to pick the right side if we have to. Now, we also made the point that as the Bantu people, we were born into a war. We were not aware of it, but the war was raging, sorry, when we were born. The descendants of Esau were waging a war against the descendants of Jacob, the Bantu people. And because we didn't understand this war, we didn't, guard ourselves. Aeschylus is a Greek gentleman, once said, in war, truth is the first casualty. So we have been deceived because that's part of war. And when we understand the battle in the scriptures, by going through the narrative, we're able to uncover the truth and expose the deception. We also made the point about the narrative having a beginning and the end, in the middle, then the beginning of the end before the end. And we made a point that the beginning of the end, we believe, is the coming of Yeshua as he was preparing for this final onslaught that he is going to mount against the enemies of his people, Israel. Even as we think about the narrative, we want to think about Isaiah 46, where we read, remember the former things of old, for I am Elohim and there is no other. I am Elohim and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, from ancient times, things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. We want to know how the end is. We can look in the beginning, and this is how it ends. It ends with people serving Jacob and his descendants, the nation that Yah promised to Abraham, and we will see that a bit later. It ends with nations bowing down to this one special nation. It ends with this nation being master over his brethren and his mother's sons bowing down to him. This is what you see at the end in the book of Revelation, but we will get there. Let's get into topic 3 about Ephraim. Now, in verse 1 of chapter 46 of Genesis, we read, so Yashara'el took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to Alua of his father Yatzeh. Then Yah spoke to Yashara'el in the visions of the night and said, Yakobo, Yakobo. And he said, here I am. So he said, I am Yah, the Alua of your father. Do not fear to go down to Egypt, for I will make you a great nation there. This is part of the promise that was made to Father Abraham in Genesis 12. This nation will come from his grandson, Jacob, Jacob. Then, in chapter 48, it reads in verse 5, and now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt, are mine as Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. This is Jacob speaking to Joseph. Jacob speaking to Josipha, saying that his 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, who were born to Josipha in the land of Egypt before Jacob could join him there, they would be his. So he is adopting Ephraim and Manasseh in the same way that Reuben and Simeon are his sons. Ephraim and Manasseh would be his sons. So that is why you see the 14 tribes in our cover picture, because Ephraim and Manasseh become part of Jacob's sons, not just family, but he adopts them. Then, later on, we're going to see this, where Jacob is now blessing these two sons of his, these newly acquired sons of his. And Joseph, knowing that Ephraim was the first one, put um, um, Ephraim in on the right, on the left side. Okay, Manasseh was the older one. Ephraim was the younger one. So Joseph, when he brought the boys, he put them, in the right position with the older on the right side of Jacob, so that he can get the firstborn blessing, and then Ephraim on the left side because he was younger. But Jacob crossed his arms such that his right hand was on Ephraim and left hand was on Manasseh. Let's look at what this means. So discuss this switch of hands and discuss the adoption and its implications. And think about, what does it mean that as Reuben and Simeon are mine, so would these two be his as well. Now let's develop the story further. In chapter 49, we find Jacob blessing the 12 sons. And when he gets to Josipah, this is what he says. Josipah is a fruitful bough by a well, but his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty Alua of Jacob. The blessings of your father have excelled the blessings of my ancestors, up to the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Josipah, and on the crown of the head of him who was separated from his brothers. So Joseph would get a double portion, right? Because there were two tribes that would come out of him. He didn't bless the sons or his grandsons directly, but through their father Joseph, he blessed them, and he gave Joseph a double portion because he was catering for two tribes. Now let's read on in Numbers 1, and we'll see that Joseph would become the second biggest tribe in Israel. Let's read from verse 5. It says, and from the sons of Joseph, from Ephraim, Elishama, the son of Ammihud; from Manasseh, Gamaliel, the son of Pedazur. Here, the scriptures are talking about the leaders of each of the tribes. I put those numbers that you can find later on in the chapter about the number of the fighting men from each tribe. So Joseph had 72.7 thousand fighting men. And this was made up of 40,000 from Ephraim and 32.2 from Manasseh. And I wanted to just include Judah's numbers there because you see that Judah was still the biggest tribe after, Joseph had these two tribes combined for him. So Judah became the biggest tribe, and you'll see later on that he, as a result of his numbers, was able to prevail over his brothers. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. In Numbers 13, we read about Ephraim. It says, from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun. This is when the scriptures are listing the tribes that were sent to spy the land when they got to a place called Kadesh Barnea. And they came back with some reports that we'll talk about now. But in verse 16 of the same chapter, Numbers 13, we read that Moshe changed the name of Hoshea to Joshua or Joshua. So his first name was Hoshea, and he was changed to Joshua, and he is from the tribe of Ephraim. Very, very important to understand that. He is from the tribe of Ephraim. Later on in chapter 14, we read this about this Joshua and Caleb from, guess which tribe? The tribe of Judah. It reads in verse 6, but Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes, and they spoke to all the congregation and the children of Yeshara'el, saying, the land we passed through to spy is an exceedingly good land. If Yah delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. These are the two from the biggest tribes. Caleb from Judah and Joshua from Ephraim. Now, what I would like you to think about is the why it is significant that this two, Judah and Ephraim, would bring a positive report about the land. Why do you think there is significance to that? And think about this in view of what we know about them from Genesis chapter 49. What do we know about Judah and Joseph/Ephraim from Genesis 49? Let's continue with the story because we'll see that Moshe will also bless Joseph, with a double portion. Let's read from verse 13. So Deuteronomy 33 is Moshe blessing the tribe of Israel. Genesis 49 is their father Jacob blessing the 12 sons. But this time it is Moshe. And this is what it reads. And of Yosipah he said, blessed of Yah is his land, the precious things of heaven, with the dew and the deep lying beneath, with the precious fruits of the sun, with the precious produce of the months, with the best things of the ancient mountains, with the precious things of the everlasting hills, with the precious things of the earth and its fullness, and the favor of him who dwelt in the bush. Let the blessing come on the head of Josipah, and on the crown of the head of him who was separate from his brothers. His glory is like a firstborn bull, and his horns like the horns of the wild ox. Together with them he shall push the people to the ends of the earth. They are 10,000s of Ephraim, and watch this, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. Let's read that again. They are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. This must help you remember what the crowds or the women sang when David came back from defeating Goliath. They attributed thousands to Saul, but 10,000 to David. Right, but I digress. What we see here is a blessing from Moshe to Josipah, and he says that his glory is like a firstborn bull. Now, let's read 1 Chronicles 5 with that in mind. What is in mind? His glory is like a firstborn bull. Now, in 1 Chronicles 5, we read, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, he was indeed the firstborn, but because he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son Yeshara'el, so that the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright. Yet Judah prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler, although the birthright was Josipah's. Get that? So the birthright was given to the sons of Joseph, the son of Yeshara'el, so that the genealogy is not listed according to the birthright, as you can see in 1 Chronicles 5. It says, yet Judah, because he was the biggest, prevailed over his brothers, and from him came a ruler, David, although the birthright was Josephus. Fascinating dynamic. Let's continue to read. Because what we see then is this David becomes king and he does well, but he gives the kingdom to Solomon, who starts well, but eventually he starts with his idolatry, and Yah split the nation into two kingdoms. In verse 26 of 1 Kings 11, we read, Then Solomon's servant, Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite from Zeredah, also rebelled against the king. Very significant that it would be someone from the tribe of Ephraim who would rebel. Verse 34, however, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand. So this is Yah talking through Abijah to Solomon, right? It's about how Yah was going to divide the kingdom or the nation into two kingdoms. And he says, however, I will not take the whole kingdom out of his hand. Whose hand? Solomon, because I have made ruler all the days of his life for the sake of my servant David. Okay, so let's read it again. Because I have made him ruler all the days of his life for the sake of my servant David, whom I chose because he kept my commandments and my statutes. But I will take the kingdom out of his son's hand and give it to you. This is Yah speaking to Jeroboam through Abijah, the prophet. Says, I will give to you 10 tribes. To who? To Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, from the tribe of Ephraim. And to his son, I will give one tribe. That's whose son? To Solomon's son. That my servant David may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city which I have chosen for myself to put my name there. So the kingdom is going to be split, but it's not going to be split during the time of Solomon. It's going to be split during the time of the son of Solomon, who will only be left with one tribe. It will actually be two if we include Benjamin. So it was Judah and Benjamin. But to Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephraimite, 10 tribes will be given. He will rule over the northern part of the nation, which retained the name Yashrael, and the southern kingdom was then called the kingdom of Judah. Now, what will happen later is that Ephraim will be the first ones to be scattered. 2 Kings 18, we read in verse 11, Then the king of Assyria carried Israel away captive to Assyria and put them in Hala and by the harbor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they did not obey the voice of Yah, their Elohim, but transgressed his covenant and all that Moshe, the servant of Yah, had commanded, and they would neither hear nor do them. So over time, because the center of worship remained in Jerusalem, which was in the southern kingdom of Judah, Jeroboam said, no, I cannot have this, because as people go to worship in Jerusalem, they might turn and give their loyalty to the king of Judah. So let me build for myself 2 worship centers, one at the border of my kingdom and the southern kingdom, and the other one at the far end of the kingdom in the north, so that my people don't have to go to Jerusalem to keep the feasts of Yah. That move was fatal because it led to idolatry, which led to Yah dispersing them, scattering them through the Assyrians. And you can read that story in 2 Kings 18. So as you read through the history of the kings of Yasharael, you'll notice how often this phrase appears. In the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Yashara'el sin. When they evaluate the conduct of the kings of Yashara'el, who were mostly without exception, evil, they would say that he did in the way of Jeroboam, or he went in the way of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, who made Yashara'el sin. Jeroboam was the first king of the northern kingdom of Yashara'el, who was from Ephraim. It is to that tribe, Ephraim, that the kingdom was given, but you will see that it will change hands because of the unfaithfulness of Jeroboam. Whereas in the southern kingdom of Judah, the kingdom always remained in the house of David. But the point here is that the northern kingdom, led by Jeroboam, with those 10 tribes, were scattered, never to return again. Never to return again until they are reunited by the King of Israel. Let's read this prophecy in Isaiah 11. It says, in that day, and you must find out which day is this by looking at the first verse, right? Read from the first verse. It says, in that day, there shall be a root of Jesse who shall stand as a burner to the people. For the Gentiles shall seek him, and his resting place shall be glorious. He will set up a burner for the nations and will assemble the outcast of Yashara'el and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Later on, it would say, also the envy of Ephraim shall depart, and the adversaries of Judah shall be cut off. Ephraim, that's the northern kingdom, shall not envy Judah, and Judah shall not harass Ephraim. So this rivalry would disappear. Yah says, when I come to set up my king, he will bring together my people and will do away with this animosity that has persisted between the two houses of Judah and Joseph or Josipha through Ephraim. Incredible. That's why we are looking forward to Yeshua coming back, because it will signal the reunification of the children of Jacob. Another prophecy in Ezekiel would emphasize this, will reiterate this. In Ezekiel 37, it reads from verse 16, as for you, son of man, take a stick for yourself and ride on it for Judah and for the children of Yashara'el, his companions. Then take another stick and ride on it for Josipha, the stick of Ephraim, and of all the house of Yashara'el, his companions. Then join them one to another for yourself into one stick, and they will become one in your hand. Please read the rest of that prophecy, because you see that there's one man who rules over them. Judah and Joseph reunited by David, the king of Yashara'el. Yes, they call him David there. And you can bet that he could be David, yes, but it could be just the son of David. It could be Yeshua, right? So again, think about, why the name of David is used in that chapter. Okay, so like I said, also discuss the meaning of the illustration of these two sticks coming together. So topic 4 is going to cover the constitution of this nation as it becomes an independent entity. But I hope we can now appreciate the split of the nation, but also the emergence of Ephraim as a key part of the nation of Yasharayel. Now, there are those who would say that when the Bible speaks about Gentiles, they're actually talking about the dispersed of Ephraim, who then joined in with the Gentiles and adopted their ways. I am not convinced about that argument, but should you come across such an argument, you know that yes, there was a scattering. Yes, Ephraim became part of the nations. They lost the Torah. They became apostate, and they forgot about the law of their God, and that is why when Yahusha came through, he said, "I was sent to the lost sheep of the house of Yasharayel," and then he would send his disciples to the ends of the world, every nation, to find his people. So when you understand Ephraim and what happened to them, you then will understand that the Great Commission of Matthew 28 is about going to find the lost sheep of the house of Yasharayel. Very important for you to consider that. Think about it, and when we meet, let me hear your thoughts, because I do believe that that commission was not universal. It didn't include all the nations. The disciples were to go into all nations to find the lost sheep of the tribe of the house of Israel. So let's stop there, and then I will post a video about the next topic, which is topic 4, the constitution of the nation of Yasharayel.